Hey everybody, it's Uncle Matt's D&D neighborhood, and what we're going to be talking about today is the oldest haunted house dungeon in D&D's history, which is Tegel Manor, and Frog God Games is running a Kickstarter about it right now. Uh, we're going to go into the Kickstarter a little bit, but the main thing I want to talk about is haunted house dungeons in general and Tegel Manor in specific. And reminding everybody, please subscribe to the channel. And also, we've got a Patreon at patreon.com/Uncle Matt. And so with that, let me introduce all the guests that I have on the show and what their connection is to Tegel Manor. First of all is Casey Christofferson, who is the art director. Edwin Nagy, who is the 5E structuralist conversion guru expert that is doing the making sure that it works for 5th edition. There's also, of course, a Swords and Wizardry version of it. We have Bill Webb, who is nominally in charge of things, although that's actually Zach. Bill did a ton of writing for this, and also organized the deal that let Frog God use that intellectual property and bring Tegel Manor back to life. And then we have Zach, and Zach is basically the chief cat herder on the whole thing, who's been making sure that it actually happens when you have a group of people who all tend to go their own way on things. So with that, Bill, give us a little bit of a history of Tegel Manor, as it started in the late 70s.
Well, let's see. Well, it was released on the original version of it was released on October 31st, Halloween of 1977 by Bob Bledsaw and Bill Owen. And Bob had used it in play testing for about a year or almost 2 years on Halloween, actually, for his family and his home group. So it was sort of the original. It was the original haunted house adventure for sure, and designed as a Halloween adventure, and it was probably the first published mega dungeon. The really interesting thing about Tegel is the first edition of it came out as the October, what they used to call installments from Judges Guild. And the way that Judges Guild did business back then was if you wanted to get their stuff when it was released, and because they didn't necessarily release everything that they put in those installments, you had to subscribe. And so you'd pay them I think it was $24 a year, because I remember coming up with the money and it being a desperately large amount of cash for the time. Of course, I was about 12 years old. And then they sent you 6 installments each year. Those installments came in these cute little orange books. They came in an envelope, and they came with these cute little orange books that look like this. And this is actually my original 1977 Tegel Manor with the 3 hole punches in it and everything else that you can see that is well worn and well used. And so that's sort of how it all started with it. They subsequently published it as a little $5 module that they released about a year later. And then later, about 14 or 15 years later, I think, Lou Zokai published a revised version of it, which I don't have a copy of here. There's one up in my warehouse, but published a revised version of it it was a 8.5 by 11 standard size with the Xerox copies of the maps on white paper instead of on parchment paper.
And so let me raise 2 things that we've talked about. First of all, it's the Judges Guild connection, and as many people will know, Judges Guild did have one Kickstarter that imploded, and that was the City State of the Invincible Overlord. This particular Kickstarter, the share that goes to Judges Guild, is entirely going to be used to help continue rescuing that Kickstarter. Yep. So just there are some people who had that question about whether the money was being used for that.
No one's got a bigger question than that than me. I was the large pledge on that particular Kickstarter, including all the maps. I think I'm in about $1,000 on that Kickstarter.
And so And so also you were mentioning the maps, and from maps, although unfortunately we don't have Alyssa Faden on the video because of day job, and so she would have been the person to talk to about the maps. However, the other visual component that's involved in a a publication is the artwork, of course, that goes into it, and well, visual, and there's the layout as well. But we've got Casey here, who's the art director. Casey, talk a little bit about what you were trying to achieve in terms of the art on this one.
Okay. I was some of you may know Arnim Shukayev did the majority of the artwork, I believe, for this so far. Though we do have 10 new pieces thanks to the Kickstarter that are going to need to be done. 11 from what I'm told, which is fine. And we are well in hand to get that taken care of. Arnim is a brilliant genius. I can't say enough about the kid. He's currently working on a research grant through his university for computer programming because he's just got that kind of brain. And so to explain to Arnim, who at the time I assigned this to him was like 19 or 20, I was like, hey, it's kind of like the Haunted Mansion from Disney, but with Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
You know that it was actually the inspiration for it really was the Haunted Mansion.
There you go. And that's what I'm trying to explain to Arnim. Arnim, because he's such a studious person, had no idea what any of that stuff was. So I got to go through all of these pieces of artwork by Mark Davis, who was not only a storyboard artist for Disney, he was also one of the original bearded old men that Walt would refer to when he was designing his theme parks. And so I sent him the pictures of the stretch paintings and a lot of the paintings from the interior of the house. And I'm like, listen, it's kind of like this. This is the visual aesthetic. And then you're also being chased by monsters. And so that's pretty much how that all went down. There was only one time I made him really mad because I forgot to inform him that the house was actually a castle made out of stone. And his original render, which is absolutely beautiful, was a wooden house. And so he still wants me dead for that.
Yeah, I imagine artists really love it when art directors leave out little details like that.
Yeah, it was just a small major detail for the cover. But he had the whole thing redone in like 30 hours. I mean, he's that good. So
now let's one of the things, and Bill, you are probably the person to defend this, but in general, I hate haunted house dungeons in D&D. So explain why I would ever run Tegel Manor if I hate haunted houses.
Well, I mean, this thing really is a haunted house, is a dungeon, whatever you want to call it. But it's sort of a Lovecraftian take on Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a haunted house, but it's got stuff that like animated bed sheets, and it's got really creepy undead all over the place. It's a very, I hesitate to say, realistic look at what an old decrepit, French manor house would be like, or English manor house would be like. But a lot of the thing with Tegel Manor is it's just a lot of fun. It's got the torture chamber where the chains crawl out of the torture thing and try and drag you down into it. And then more importantly, and probably the biggest fun point with this thing is it's very personalized to the family that owns the manor, the Rump family of all things. And the main denizens inside the manor aren't the random monsters in the random rooms and that kind of thing, but what they are is the family members. And so kind of the neat thing about that is you don't just encounter the living family members inside the manor. There's Ruang Rump the assassin, for example, and he can be encountered in the village. He can be encountered as a highwayman along the road. And then even though you encounter him there, he actually has a room and a complex of areas inside the manor. The interesting thing with that family deal is that one of the adventure hooks that was originally proposed for this was that the player characters win the map to the manor in a card game from one of the Rump family members. And the joke about that is he's lost the thing 10 times and everybody always comes back and wants their money back. So there's a lot more depth.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really liked about the history of the place, is that the Rump family for generations has been desperately trying to divest itself of this place, and it keeps coming back to them and they can't get rid of it. And so that, adds both an element of humor and creepiness, I thought. It's
And the thing too, it's not just a goofy haunted house. I mean, it's pretty dangerous. I think I've run it.
Oh yeah, it's freaking lethal. I mean, I did run through it in the
Yeah. I've run it. I think 4 or 5 times at conventions. I ran it at 2 of the conventions I went to on the 40th anniversary. So back in 2017, I ran it, and because I happened to be at a convention on Halloween. And yeah, it was a total party kill every time. I ran the volunteers game at UConn a couple years ago, and 22 players, and they all ended up getting turned into wraiths by one of the family members. So it was kind of
fun. All right, so let's. I'm watching the time because Bill and Casey are both a little bit time limited on this one, and so we're trying to hit the 2 things about art and a lot of the writing in the first half of the video, and then we're going to swing over to Edwin and talk a little bit about specifically how it looks in Swords and Wizardry and in 5e in terms of personalizing it to the different systems. But Zach, give us a little bit of an idea. Once Bill takes control of a project,
it goes all crazy.
Explain what happens from that point.
Once Bill takes control, well, you get limited updates that come in really fast bursts. Good ideas happen like all the time, but all of a sudden something that you talked about 6 hours before had totally shifted in both scope, cost, and design, and in a way that's usually almost always cool, but it's a challenge to keep up with, because those are the ideas that have to get implemented, not necessarily by me, but I have to give the good news to the people who's worked on it for 7 hours, like Edwin. Like, oh, by the way, we've added 2 more levels and 14 more maps, and we need it next week. And it's a wild ride, but it makes for great products.
Okay, so also talking about the production, and we'll come back to you, Zach. Don't think that you got out of it with the quick answer, but the talking about the actual, going back to the very beginning of this thing was, and again, to give you an idea of what these things look like with Bill, is that Bill caught me in the hallway and said, "Here, come this way," and then he plunks himself down on a couch next to this guy, and I sit down in the chair next to him, and he introduces, "This is Bob Bledsaw too, and we're going to be doing Tegel Manor." Okay, that's kind of a big thing. How's that working? And so the way that these deals work, and I can't go outside the NDA, but so I can't give you any specific numbers on this one. But what we discussed. Sorry, my dog's making noise in the background. What we discussed was a situation in which we run the Kickstarter, and then at the back end of one of the Kickstarters, the other company gets a share after profits, and so that's where the money's coming from to help rescue City State of the invincible Overlord. And so it was a matter of, can you get a contract drafted for this tomorrow? No. sort of hopeful look on his face.
Your face was precious, because I was standing next to him when he said that to me.
Oh, were you there? Okay.
Yeah, that was awesome. You look really happy and joyful.
Yeah, to defend myself a little bit on this, some of you it's on the Kickstarter, of course, but some of you may or may not know that I've obviously worked a lot with Judges Guild back in the early 2000s, and we produced 4 products back then, including the Wilderlands box set and the City State of the Invincible Overlord in the 3.5 version. One of the important things to note here was that we had completed a 3.5 era manuscript for Tegel Manor. I worked with Gabor Lux and a couple other folks on that. Casey, you might have even been involved. I can't remember. I think Lord Metal Demon was off the boards. He was also involved as well. And we actually had a manuscript for 3.5 D&D for Tegel Manor. There's the Wilderlands. And so we weren't exactly starting from scratch. And then to be fair, I gave everybody a 2-year lead.
Yeah, well, you weren't starting on from scratch on the thing. Writing the contract in one day. That was from scratch.
Yeah, that's true. I got the art done plenty in advance, though. The Cartography, well, you know, it was a little more complicated.
So Casey, what kind of instructions is it? I mean, how did you worked then from Bill's pieces of manuscript, right?
Yeah.
And then you would get those to Arnim. What is it that you send to Arnim to tell him what he's going to do? We know already that it should say stone walls, not wooden walls. But what what do art notes look like when you send those?
A lot of time with Arnim, like I said, a lot of people may not know, I was his teacher in high school. I was his illustration teacher. He sought me out because he really wanted the job. He wanted an opportunity to work as an illustrator in gaming. And evidently he tracked me down and went to the high school that I taught at so he could do that. I know that sounds weird, but you'd have to meet Arnim. He's
that's funny. I thought he was still in high school.
Yeah.
Started working for us.
Yeah, he started working for you guys while he was in high school because I sent work for the Razor Coast to Bill and said, hey, you think you could use this? And he's like, well, let's hire this guy right now. And I said, well, he's 15. And so we had to get a special contract. But when I
special contract. That again was, hey, Matt, can you get a contract where we're hiring a minor to do some artwork for us?
Sure. And
we had to fly his mom and his brother down to Dallas so that his brother could translate English into Russian, and his mom could ask questions in Russian. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. Her English is a lot better now. It's gotten better. So, but they're a wonderful family. Anyways, a lot of it is I will say, okay, we need Bill needs 15 portraits of really creepy looking people, and here's a one sentence description of these creepy people. And then he will send me notes through Messenger. He'll send me like his sketches and say, hey, how's this look? And I'm like, okay, that, but maybe a little more green or a little more scar tissue on the face or some snagglier teeth or something to that effect. And we have a very close rapport when it comes to things like that. But the thing about it is he's a very good artist. So, and he has a very brilliant imagination. So if you tell him, I need a monster with tentacles stuffed in a jar, and the tentacles are pouring out of the jar in some kind of laboratory, after a while he gets kind of bored and is like, oh, another one of these. And then he turns it over and they're absolutely eye-popping. And that's one of the nice things about taking this job as the art director is I get to work with people who create eye-popping images, you know, and let them foster and grow their own style, which is really sweet.
Yeah, and we have several artists that are working on developing. You can watch them develop, which is more of a Frog God thing than it is a Tegel Manor thing.
Sure.
So I want to let's swing back to Tegel Manor. So really, how did you developed your view of Tegel Manor through the sort of concept of the haunted mansion, which was right on target, as it turns out. Now that we've read the history.
And the old manuscript, you know, which is very bare bones. But then I had a lot of experience working with Bill on Wilderlands of High Fantasy, and worked with his old partner on the Wilderlands of High Fantasy Player's Guide. So I got to get deep immersion in the world of the Wilderlands and the Judges Guild. I had frequent phone conversations with Bob Sr. When I was working on the writing for those, because I'd call him up and he was such a gracious guy to answer the phone and talk to you. And you know, I'd say, hey, this has like a real Frazetta feel to it. Is
so
that what
you talked to actual Bob Sr.,
Yes.
Bob first?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I talked to him maybe half a dozen times on the phone, and while he was capable and able to go to conventions, we'd sit in a corner and chat about just his vision for what the Wilderlands stuff and what the Judges Guild stuff was all about. He's the kind of guy who would say, well, in this area, there's just this smell of roses. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, for no reason. I just like to see what the players do for the next half hour, trying to figure out where the smell of roses comes from. And so knowing that about him and about just the kind of approach to the original Tegel, it was pretty easy to kind of go, okay, this is the kind of weird stuff that you want to convey in your images. So.
Keep talking. I need to sneeze.
I feel for you. And so that's what we would do. And then, of course, you know, areas like Temple of Frog, so on. I mean, that plays to a lot of these kids who gravitate towards our product lines feels. They like the weirder and the more exotic stuff because it creates a more challenging or exciting image. And so,
Well, I had to do.
Yeah.
I did the video with all the art that you had done with Arnim directed, and it was super creepy. It was really weird because the closer I looked at it as I'm doing the video, the more I felt flipped out. Like the teddy bear in the room that thing stared at me in a real creepy way after about an hour. And so I think it was very effective. Arnim did a great job.
He's something else.
Okay.
Yeah, really something. So Zach, I assume you'll talk about the maps after I go. I'm going to have to go here in about 5 minutes, but
no problem.
But those of you who haven't heard the speech already, this one's really personal to me because it was also the very first adventure I played in. It was the very first adventure that I bought and ran, so it goes all the way back to. It was the first thing that I didn't write myself that I ever used. It was a store-bought adventure, and so it's. We got, I don't know, probably 100 hours of play in that first couple of years in Tegel Manor. It was sort of the main dungeon other than Rapanathuk that we played in, so it had a lot of formative function on me as a D&D guy. The other thing that not very many people know, and I wrote part of this up on the Kickstarter too, but everyone knows my handle on the internet has been Sathaga. Those of you who've known me even before Necromancer Games days, so back to all the way to the 90s, including Casey from the Fangs Fall chat and stuff like that, know that I've always gone by Froggy or gone by Sathaga. And so my Aseum name was Sathaga. My handles on every video game I've ever played and every forum I've posted in are typically involve a frog somehow. Now the real basis of that is Clark Ashton Smith's Hyperborea, but the reason that I took that as a I don't know, nom de pen or whatever was because of the Temple of Sathaga in Tegel Manor, which inspired me to figure out who the heck Sathaga was, and this was pre-internet. And then I found that out, and it turned me to the book Hyperborea by Clark Ashton Smith. So all of my role-playing roots and the name of our company and a lot of my history over time particularly in the industry, but also in other ways online and other places, traces back to a little one-liner on the front page of the Little Orange Book, which talks about the special zombies with the evil priest Sarthagus, who worships Sathaga, and is basically a knockoff of the Temple of the Frog that was Dave Arneson's gig, which of course Bob Bledsaw and company had also published his whole first deal in the first fantasy campaign about the exact same time that they released this, and so it's got a lot of meaning to me, and I think. Obviously there's a lot of meaning to other people because the Kickstarter is blown up to like double what I thought it would be. So it's been awesome.
Well, and that stuff also in turn goes with Carl Edward Wagner, who's deceased now. And he was a gamer who gamed with Arneson and some of these guys. And he was a pastiche writer of Robert Howard stories and weird horror. And so a lot of the Egg of Coot and all of that stuff actually can be drawn from one of his novels. I can't remember. It's not Darkness. It might be Bloodstone. Actually.
I thought Egg of Coot was somebody that they disliked.
It is,
Yeah,
but
okay.
the egg was located in an area that was filled with these frog people near the Temple of the Frog, and they were excavating it in order to turn it into some kind of evil world destroying device, because the guy who was running the frogs couldn't remember what it did when he found it the first time, like 1,000 years before. So
released all the frogs, kind of like the Hackmaster thing where they released all the pit bulls. Hey, so folks, I'm going to have to go. Like I said, I'm sure Zach is going to talk about the maps. I'm going to take my kid to his orchestra for rehearsal tonight. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure I mentioned is that this thing has become a hardcover book at no additional cost to everyone for 5th edition, and we are 21 units sold off. We're at 229. We have to sell 250 copies of something in order to justify a hardcover print. Currently, the 5e count I quit counting, but it's somewhere around 400 or something. The Swords and Wizardry books There are 229 sold as of about 5 minutes ago. I was looking at my phone earlier, if you guys didn't notice. And so that's all in with the committed pledges I have from a couple of stores that don't go through Kickstarter. Plus somebody actually emailed me and said they were going to they wanted two, but they wanted them both to be Sword and Wizardry. So I'm keeping careful count, but we need to sell 21 more of these things, and the book becomes a hardcover at no additional cost to the backers. So anyway, that's all I got for tonight.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Ahead. Take it easy, fellas. I'll talk to everybody later.
Casey, do you have anything else that you want to say about art or anything like that before you have to go?
Well, I've been taking a look at a lot of Alyssa's stuff for her maps lately, and I know that's going to tee it up for Zach. But some very
spent a few hours looking at one of those rooms.
Yeah. Well, and all the little.
Okay.
All the little.
All the little.
Yeah. Well, no, I think I think Casey's gone. So
right.
that's fine. He had to leave anyway. He just went a little earlier than he expected. And he's left and I'm going to click on it. Oh, there he goes. Okay. So, oh, there it is. It just gives me a black screen. I'm trying to bring up the big picture of him.
Oh, the frozen.
No.
The frozen
Yeah, the frozen images are always so much fun when you get one of those. All right. So let's do this, Edwin. Now let's start talking about, I mean, we talked a lot about the original version of it. We talked a little bit about the Swords and Wizardry version of it because that derives from the original version of it, which was done for OD&D. So now what we want to start talking about a little bit is in what way have we restructured this toward 5th edition? Casey, are you back?
Yeah, but I'm getting ready to go. Like Bill, he had orchestra for his child. Mine is performing in a variety show this evening. So I get to go watch her sing a song that I never want to hear again.
Go parents.
She's singing
Go
Frozen.
Parents, yeah.
Right. No. But she's doing a quartet ensemble. It's going to be beautiful. So thanks, guys, for having me in. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show. Okay, Edwin, I teed you up. We're going to talk about what you had to take basically a lot of Swords and Wizardry defined material and make this into something that would capture the same sort of lightning as a bottle for the 5th edition players as it did for people who are playing the much simpler OD&D version of it. So talk about, I mean, how did you approach that in terms of doing that?
Before I answer that question, I will put a plug in for the Swords and Wizardry version because I think it's going to kick some serious butt. So I think the freedom of the haunted house with the weird sort of anything can happen mechanics, although they're just sentences, is a pretty strong piece in Swords and Wizardry. And one of the things that I'm working hard on is to keep some of the flexibility, some of the freedom, some of the mystery, the anything can happen, while getting it into 5e mechanics. And it's tricky because in Swords and Wizardry in general, there's sort of few enough rules that the audience is very used to having custom mechanics. So if you're reading through,
there's all kinds of mini games that are in it.
Whatever it is, whatever the author felt is the right way to resolve the fact that there's lava coming out of the nose of a statue and you need to duck out of the way. It's just there. Whereas I feel a slightly higher pressure for 5e to actually bring those same games into 5e mechanics. And so it's a lot of, I'm glad that this is coming now and not 3 years ago, because I know 5e a lot better now than I did 5 years ago. And I have a better toolbox, that I can reach in for and say, oh, this is really a time to bring out exhaustion, or this is a time to bring out a non-repeating saving throw or whatever. And to try to keep things different from room to room mechanically as well as story-wise.
Because also that's fun for the dungeon master to have
Absolutely.
different stuff to use. I mean, and that's always, an aspect. I mean, an adventure ought to be fun for the dungeon master, just like it is for the players. And that really is one of the things about Tegel Manor. The whole anything could happen thing is fun for the DM as well. So, you know.
Right. Well, I think the other sort of the third audience is the reader, right? So you get the player, the GM, and then the person who just likes to read modules. And there too, 5e has sort of natural language mechanics in a lot of places. Everything's written out in sentences. You know, Swords and Wizardry has a lot of really compact shorthand notation. Pathfinder even more so. 5e more attempts to write things out in sentences, and so trying to fit the mechanics into the flavor of writing, keep it lighthearted and yet deadly, because it is a tough weird, because there's a lot of humor, but then there's also a lot of just gruesome, nasty going on, and keeping those two balanced and also bringing in the technical language is definitely taking some work.
Are you able to tell from the original version of which one are you working from? First of all, are you working mainly from the Frog God, the old Frog God version, or are you working from the original 77 version?
No, I'm working from Bill from the current text.
So when you've got all right, so you're following things where Bill has written in terms of whether it's one of the horrible things or whether it's one of the kind of humorous things.
Yeah, and some of these things are, you know, Bill does have a few sentences in there which are, you know, the lava comes out of the nose of the statue. Edwin, figure out some mechanics for this.
Yeah, Skeeter used to say that he'd get manuscripts from Bill that would say, Skeeter, put some rules in here.
Yeah, yep. And occasionally it's put some story in here, or put some description in here, put whatever in here. And that's fun.
He's gotten lazier in his old age then.
Right. And then of course, you know, also just we haven't even started really on the monsters yet. It's at this point it's figuring out which monster. Well, that's not true. I'll back up on that. But figuring out which monsters we can use existing creatures for, or existing plus a little twist, and which ones are worth making new creatures for. And of course, that's different between 5e and Swords and Wizardry in terms of what exists in the published world. And so that's also kind of fun to play with. But one of the things that I did, so I feel like it was a year or so ago that I got sent some of the actual appendix material to work on, which is real mechanic heavy, traps and alchemy stuff and things like that, things that we weren't even 100% sure we were going to use. But so that was sort of, I actually came in through the appendix originally, which is a good Tegel entry point.
That's a great euphemism. That's a great euphemism. I came in through the appendix. Exactly. Bill got you into the appendix. Good. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, I think if we're going to have one quote of the evening, that's going to be it.
Through the appendix.
But yeah, so now I'm working forward through the house, and then I think I may have already worked some on the wilderness, some of the outlying areas also. So it's sort of I'm saving the core for last almost.
Zach, talk now about, okay, so I talked a little bit about how I got surprised with the initial contract that Bill had managed to get, and that in and of itself is not such an easy thing to do when you're dealing with Judges Guild, and then arranging for where it was all going to be used to back up the city-state Kickstarter, and then how Bill sort of began the whole process. And we know that he kind of shovels the organization of one of these things to you. And so where did you first, I mean, you first knew about it because apparently you were watching my face being real happy about it.
I walked with Bill to go see you. Like we got to go see Finch. I'm like, okay. I was standing at a table, minding my own business at North Texas. And we had just talked about doing the Planet books for the Merle Rasmussen. And I turn around and he goes, "Hey, come with me." And he's like, "Okay, I'm coming." And then he goes, "Hey, this is blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "We're going to do Tegel Manor." I'm like, "What?" And then he goes, let's go see Finch. I'm like, okay. So I was like 35 seconds before you found out.
Yeah, you didn't have a whole lot more to work with than I did on that one.
No, I didn't, except that I knew a couple things. One, I knew Tegel Manor was a good property. I knew that it fit really well with what we had made. I didn't know that Gabor Lux had done some of the work with Bill back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and so I knew Bill was familiar with it. I knew that was the kind of material we could work with. So I didn't have the same hesitation that you did because I didn't have to worry about legal things.
That wasn't so much hesitation as just shock and thinking to myself, okay, this is not a structure on.
That's the same thing as hesitation. That's the same thing.
No, it's not. That's like a heroic approach to a situation in which hesitation could have showed up.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll give you that. Okay.
Heroic about
no, and then after that, it was a matter of when, and I didn't get a good answer as to when. Which
Halloween
is okay.
was the answer to that.
Well,
but we didn't know.
but which Halloween was another answer, and it was a matter of we were already knee deep. I think at the time, finishing up and getting the blight out. It's been a while since we did this. It wasn't just this year, and so we just weren't sure of the timing. And he went right away and got art, and he was ready. He had a vision, which is unusual because he usually has a good idea, but his vision doesn't like come clear. He already knew what he wanted.
Well, he has several visions. When Bill started,
that's true.
He's looking at it through how a fly has like a million different facets, all with different pictures of things, and that's what Bill sees, and it's also generally what he conveys to the project manager like you.
It is, and I've had to do less actually project managing on this than Bill has because he's really aware of the steps. Where I came in on was we talked about the map and how important the map was and how central it was to how important it was in the history of games in terms of what kind of map it was for like a dungeon, mega dungeon. And we suggested Alyssa Faden. And early on, I was like, we'll do a map. It'll be in color. It will be great. We'll offer her X amount of money, which is at this point so low that it's laughable that it's going to be way bigger because it's so amazing. But at the time, we just wanted to update. We wanted it to be possible to play it on VTTs. We wanted to give kind of a indication of a modern sensibility to it with the same kind of, I guess, gross zaniness that you find in Tegel Manor.
Now, one of the other things, though, a lot of people who are, I mean, if you air quotes old school, want to see maps that are more of a diagram so they're more playable. So to what degree does Alyssa's detail get in the way of being able to actually see what's going on and as the DM on the assumption that the players are not looking at it? Now, granted, there's battle mats and stuff. Probably the players are going to be seeing a lot of this map.
They can, but the good news is I think we're going to make a couple different versions of it with layers turned off, at least in PDF for sure. So you're going to be able to see one that just has the floor, and so it's more of a player. There may be a blank one. Like I actually have a copy of the one that was done in Vector that Edwin helped me put on to cut up to make the room-sized version of it to make sure that the prototype worked, but it's available in almost every stage because it's done in digital from the beginning in Photoshop layers and ready to go. So we'll be able to make the map useful for those who don't want to have all the excess. But the stuff is beautiful.
I'm guessing we're going to have a nice black and white or whatever, sort of monochrome room layout, room numbers, key map that'll get you the sizes of everything. And then we also have
everything else,
all the art parts of the map, and then the battle maps, and
it's truly this one is an illustration. It's like a tapestry in the true sense of you're looking at different places and giving an idea of what's happening in these little rooms that are so insanely detailed down to the mirror is broken and there's little pieces of broken mirror. There's a chicken dinner on the table and there's actually a drawn chicken on the plate on that table in a 20 by 20 room, and it's amazing. It truly is art.
Okay, so a couple of things. One question is, will some of Gabor's material be in this version? I think all of it will be, right?
Well, I think it's been in some form, yes. And actually, his stuff was really good. So it isn't like it's being taken out. But I think that there were some fundamental changes that were made that I think that Bill wasn't just not familiar with what he had turned in. But other than that, yes, a lot of it will be in there. Okay,
now another question is people are asking, what sort of changes and additions are being made? People are talking about, how the original version of it is basically a masterpiece. And chat room, I need for you guys to specify this question a little bit because we've got people saying don't change the original, and I think what a lot of what Bill has done, yeah, I don't think there are any changes that are changes to the original parts of it, but I think Bill has added more detail.
The exposition, I would say, it's more exposition, but no change to actually what's happening. And
So,
some
yeah,
places where
fleshed out.
there's a 30 by 30 room and there's a purple worm in it, they made some adjustments to why that happens and how it can actually literally happen versus being physically impossible. Those kinds of things.
So they keep the purple worm, but they
give it some kind of like trans-dimensional reason it can be there. Edwin can speak more of that than I can, though.
Edwin, trans-dimensional reason for a purple worm. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I mean, all you need is a suitable mirror, right?
There you go.
Boom, boom, boom. See,
See how
that's why he's a genius.
fast that man is.
That's why he's the most genius converter in 5e, man.
Yeah, no, I think that is a something that we have gotten a little bit less comfortable with are things that the GM doesn't understand, because part of being able to improv as you're running something relies on understanding what's going on behind the scenes. And if it's your own creation, you do know sort of what's going on back there. And so when you're making up new stuff, it's easy. But if it's somebody else's creation and you only get, a few little blurbs, it's kind of hard to improv off of that. You have to sort of first work backwards to say, okay, how would I have gotten to where this is now? And then you can keep moving forward. Because otherwise you start ending up with things that you don't understand, and then it's hard to keep them straight and hard to make rulings that are sort of reasonable.
I can say this much too about the changes. Nobody loves this adventure more than Bill Webb. And honestly, he would see this as a sacrilege if we were to go in and make huge changes to his vision. He doesn't see it as his vision at all. He sees it as his inspiration. And I think that he would treat it like heresy to make fundamental changes to the way Tegel Manor exists.
Yeah,
So
I think that's true. What I was looking at was more what the people in the chat room meant by "don't change the original," because I was thinking, are we really saying that we want the one sentence description of the rooms? Because
I mean, we still have
those are really good.
I mean, that still exists.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that the nice thing about doing a new thing is the old thing doesn't stop existing.
That's true.
And in fact, I think we hit that one.
I don't know.
Hit that stretch goal? Not yet.
I'm not sure. Actually, I'm playing on the new ones. For the old ones are all past me.
Gotcha.
Also, by the way, the reason that it looks like I've got a terrible cold, and you may be asking, why did you do this video when you have a terrible cold? I don't. I'm super victorious that I just cleaned my entire master bedroom today, but there was a huge amount of dust, and I didn't have a dust mask for most of it until I was saying to myself, why are my sinuses hurt? So all this is recovery from breathing like a ton of dust, and I didn't realize I was going to be in quite this bad shape by the time the evening rolled around for the life.
Good. I was worried I was going to catch something from you.
Yeah, no, because the way I look, you could probably think you could catch it all the way through the internet, but
Exactly.
but yeah, no, it's just dust. So anyway, that's all about me, because I haven't had a whole lot to do with the Tegel Manor thing. So I was just going to.
Oh, you wrote the contract. That wasn't going to happen without that.
Nope,
Well,
that's true. That's true.
There is a lot of dust in Tegel Manor.
Yeah.
Dust monsters.
No, there's dust. There's spider webs. There's mold. There's lots of mold.
I am definitely in 5e terms at exhaustion level 2. And
ooh, you use a 5e term. Your channel's they all exit.
No, I'm going to go on and say that in terms of swords and wizardry,
that's better.
I'm at -2 saving throws on everything. So
no, but
trans-dimensional dust. All you need is a mirror.
I do want to say that when Edwin and I put together the prototype for the convention style map that you can lay down, and it's 144 square feet, a little more. And
do you have one there? Because you showed me.
Yeah, no, it was my living room. The picture I had, I don't have it with me nearby, but it's my entire living room was taken up, and it's being printed at enough resolution. I mean, the DPI is insane. The file itself, with the no color, was 2 gigabytes.
No, this raises a question, because if you've got an enormous map sitting in your living room, then that suggests to me that Jennifer is not in the house. But
no, she helped me set it up.
Yeah,
and then she packed it up to send the bill.
because
she packed it up right away to send it to Bill.
your haircut and you've got the nice, nicely combed hair and everything, and that suggested to me that Jennifer is in the house.
Oh,
And
she is. She is.
Okay.
And she was there, but she helped me lay it out, put it together, make it look nice, then folded it up right away and put up, said, make sure you send this to Bill. I'm
So
like, okay.
if I remember correctly, the little poster behind you there is 1/4 of the map that.
Yes, exactly.
1/4 of it.
That's 1/4 of it.
So the actual Tegel Manor map, as you've
There's
got
4
it
of those.
right now, physically in reality, is 4 of those.
It is. If you look on the Frog God Facebook page, there's a video of me gloating over Bill Webb that shows that in video. And I have an actual 28mm miniature sitting in the middle that you can barely see, but it's there.
I told my home gaming group, I told the couple that host our game that they have about 3 months to get rid of their furniture.
That's true. I'm excited about it because we're going to do a color test on it pretty soon as well. So I'm excited that we're going to have it for Frog God to be able to run at cons. It's going to be a great, fun thing, and we're going to get an excuse to have 20 tables from the convention. Like, how many tables you need? We need 20, please.
Now that means that we need to start getting a hold of miniatures, like right away, right?
I have those
because there are like bazillions. There are encounters where there are literally bazillions. I mean, Edwin, you probably had to write in, 1 bazillion.
1 bazillion, right? Exactly. Well, no, actually, one of the nice things about 5e is it's just a swarm of wraiths.
So lots of wraiths minis. Hey, we have an important comment from Kim. The past fabric maps have apparently not been super bright, and so she's saying make the maps.
Alyssa and I are doing a color test on this one. We're doing a color test on this probably 3 weeks, and just going to check it. And Alyssa's going to actually make the adjustments just for the print file versus the one that's going to be remain the digital file, just so that will be the case.
Chuck, there is no expletive way he would ever be able to make.
We thought of it for about 6 seconds.
Using drag and lock tiles that it would take like a century of several people. We would need all of Tom Tullis's printers working full time.
It would make him bald.
Actually, you know what? That's all wrong. Wait 2 years. The technology will be 10 times faster. It's going to be easy.
No. What it needs to be is not 10 times faster, but 10 times more durable on the machines. Mine right now.
It'll be that too.
Mine's on the fritz right now.
Yeah, no, it'll be that too.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, I think of all this technology. What you could do 2 years ago versus what you can do now. I mean, just got to be a little patient. We will have
patience is not my strong point.
We will have 3D Tegel Manor.
Oh boy!
Or actually, we're gonna go Zach's way. Probably it'll probably be virtual.
It might be, but that's 3D. If you do 3D that way, you can make it. Yeah, any 3D file can show up. Dude. Unity lets you do that, man.
Well, actually, one of the things, I mean, Alyssa actually constructed a 3D model of City of Brass. I don't know if she did it for Tegel Manor, but I mean, you would technically have the ability to walk through her undetailed, block.
I want the file. I want the file so I can stick it in Unity and put it on my headset. So I'm serious, though. That's going to be worth it.
And you didn't.
So we never know.
Yeah.
No, because she wouldn't give me the file. She's just mean. She's a mean person.
She is a mean person, but
I hope she watches this soon.
That's what we like about her. Yeah, she said she was going to watch it. Okay. And so you have said that
I take it back.
Person, yeah, smart.
I'm gonna get stabbed with the gladius through the throat.
Pilum or something like. She goes with the distance weapon. Out of preference.
So I can slide down as it goes through.
Yeah,
nice.
Exactly.
Alyssa the Impaler. There you go. All righty. Well, anything else, Matt?
I think that really covers what the whole thing has done. People may have noticed that this is one of these puzzling Kickstarters. Kickstarters have started operating a little bit differently recently than they have in the past. We really expected that this one would be down to about $1,000 a day right at this point. And it has really done, it has not lost any speed at this point, which is a very odd thing by this point in a Kickstarter, that it would still be bringing people in. We've got no idea. Bill and I had a long conversation about that. I think 2 days ago or yesterday anyway. And
It's done very well. It's way outperformed our expectations, and we're going to make it so it's worth it to everybody because we're really trying to.
Yeah, so I feel like that's
value
putting the
work.
pressure. Yeah, that puts the pressure back on us to.
It does, though. It does, but it's good pressure. It actually is really good pressure.
Yeah.
So, your mic's off, Matt.
Your mic's off, which is fine.
I can speak for what Matt is saying is. No. Can't we? No.
Still muted. It's all right.
Oh well.
So.
Muted.
Wow. Okay.
That's Uncle Matt saying, "Hey, oh, there he is."
Hey, don't forget to go to Patreon.
right.
Hit like on the video. Yeah.
No, what I was going to say was I just looked at it and we're once again over 1,000, although we're under 2,000 today. So maybe we're finally starting to hit that plane. And then, usually most Kickstarters then go slow. And then in your last 48 hours, they skyrocket. But the stretch goals and things that we're talking about doing in this one might keep it going. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's just, that has nothing to do with the product or anything. It's just kind of odd to see the Kickstarter, performing abnormally.
You've been through 23 of them, and watched them even more, so you have a good feeling. It's not like this is totally taking us by surprise, except it's different, and it's noticeably different in a positive way that we're really excited about. So, yeah,
it's a positive way. That's always nice. If it were a surprise in a negative way, that would be less enjoyable.
We had that once too, and so we don't want to do that again.
Yeah, well, yeah. We've had that on 2. No, I guess not. We've had a couple where after the Kickstarter we realized that they were going to cost a lot more than we had thought at the time. But
that was before me, so
it was before you. So now you're the one that's responsible. If we have one that costs more, we'll all be just like, God damn it, Zach.
That's exactly what you'll say too.
Where were you? Yeah, it is exactly.
You can buy a shirt, so if you don't want to say it, they'll just say it for you all day. Right. So there you go.
But that's really what I wanted to cover was to show to talk about a little bit about the history of the original Tegel Manor, a little bit of the history about how we got started on this project and what it looked like, how it's worked on the way going through between Bill doing the writing, Alyssa doing the maps, Edwin working on making it work for 5th edition, and Zach trying to keep everybody basically in line on schedule and within costs, so that he wouldn't be blamed for it, and then Casey looking at the art. And I think we've pretty much covered all of that. Do either of you guys have anything else that you want to add?
If you haven't backed it, consider backing it for at least $1, because on the Pledge Manager you can get in on some of the stuff that I assure you, the maps that we're making, the big giant ones, will not be available after this on the Frog God webpage. Those won't be for sale.
and you really will. I mean, if you're a fan of big maps, you're going to want that.
Yeah, your $1's your insurance to make sure you get an opportunity to buy it if you want to.
Are we still going to let people? If people only bid $1, are they going to be able to get something mailed to them?
Well, they're getting a Pledge Manager, and they can do on Backer Kit. They're able to upgrade their pledges.
All the shipping costs are done in Backer Kit afterwards. So if you order something, you will pay shipping.
Okay.
So yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay.
But it's but shipping is
all right. As long as it does give you access to Backer Kit, then that's cool.
Yep, that's what it does. Cool.
All right,
well, you go sneeze a while, and I'm going to go play some D&D.
All right. Well, that's actually a good excuse. Go ahead.
And Zach is going to do some maps.
Go ahead. Yep. All right. So
I did my maps. Look at your folder, damn it.
All right. I will.
So thank you very much. Thank you guys for being on the show. Thank you very much. Those of you who have been watching. Sorry about the fact that I'm so congested from cleaning up the room and having dust. And whatever kind of Dungeons and Dragons it is that you play, imagine the hell out of it.